Started with the webinar. So the webinar tonight is Find Your True Colors. And I'm going to share with you 3 keys to becoming confident with your color and discovering your true colors. And I think you guys can see me, and a lot of you might notice that I like to talk with my hands. So I'm going to try to keep my jazz hands at bay as I'm talking, but I love to talk with my hands and I'm not working with any fabric. So I want to apologize in advance for my jazz hands. So if you could just bear with me and maybe give me a jazz hands emoji in the chat bar, that would be fine. All right, so does this sound like you? I ask a lot of I ask a lot of quilters this question. What are your 1 or 2 sticking points when it comes to working with color? And what I want to start off by sharing with you guys is the top 8 things, the struggles that quilters share with me. And if this sounds like you, if you just want to type out me in the comment section, that would be super fabulous. So does this sound like you? Have you ever heard yourself or think to yourself, I can't work with color without getting too crazy? Or it takes forever to decide on a color palette. Or I can't build my own original color palette. I can only use bundles. Or do you find yourself saying, I can't find colors that pop without creating clash? I'm not confident in my color choices, so I stay in my color comfort zone. I'm better at copying than creating. I don't know the right colors for the right patterns. And so if that sounds like you, or if you feel like you've heard yourself say that before or said it to yourself, I want you to know that you are not alone. And in fact, a week ago or so, I sent out a survey to my newsletter subscribers, and a lot of you are on my newsletter subscribers, so maybe you've already answered this question. And 466 of you chimed in with your top struggles or questions about color or using color in your quilts. So I put this slide here, and it's a word cloud of the entire responses. So I personally haven't had a chance to really dive deep into the answers for that question. Since there are so many responses to that question, I've only been able to go on a very, very surface level looking through the survey. But I did this word cloud. And if you're familiar with a word cloud, the bigger the word is, the more times it was mentioned in the survey. So I put this slide here for one reason. I want you to know that you're not alone in your frustrations and your desires for color. And so that is why I created this webinar and the Playful Color Quilt Guild, and really the Playful Color Revolution, because color is supposed to be fun. I can think back to a time in childhood where color was fun. There was no pressure with color and it was fun. And that's what I want for us quilters. So before I get into the meat of the webinar, I want to make sure we're all on the same page. So many of you know my story, but I want to run through it really quickly so you know where this Playful Color Revolution business is coming from. So hey there, I'm Rebecca Bryan of Bryan House Quilts. I am a quilter. I'm the founder of the Playful Color Quilt Guild. I'm a color lover and obviously all around nerd. And I am a busy mom. I've got 4 children, and this is a picture of my kids with my husband in Amsterdam. We lived in the Netherlands for a year, about 2 years ago. And so that is who I am behind the scenes as a quilter. And I have published 2 books. So I've got Modern Rainbow and I've got Modern Triangle Quilts. Now, when I did the Rainbow book, it was super easy. I loved working with rainbows. I feel like the rainbows are really my color comfort zone. And then when it came to doing the Modern Triangle quilts, I personally had a really tough time with the color. And I thought all of those thoughts I shared with you earlier. And then I also thought, can I just only work in rainbow? Is rainbow the only colors I can be successful with? And I felt myself saying to myself, you're only good with rainbows. And, that was the self-doubt talking in my head. So when I went through those 8 different things that quilters say to themselves, I too have said those things to myself at one time or another. I am a quilt teacher. I do a lot of online workshops. So this is my 2018 block of the month, and it was done online. Oops, going backwards. And I do a lot of quilting in person. I love teaching online and I love teaching in person. There's something about the face-to-face interaction that you just can't beat. And so this is a picture of me teaching at the Houston Modern Quilt Guild. And then at the top right is a picture of me teaching in Switzerland. And these 2 lovely ladies next to me are Erica and Michelle. They were part of my 2018 Block of the Month program. So I love teaching. I designed a fabric line for Robert Kaufman. I think this was in the spring of 2017. And then I have won an award for my quilt. So I won an award. I won 2nd place at QuiltCon for minimalism for one of my triangle quilts. And this other picture on the left is me exhibiting my new quilts, my new works in Germany this past May. So I've shown and taught quilters around the world. So my goal here for you today is to show you that quilting in color is possible, and also to provide you with a clear path and a plan to get you where you want to be. So before I get any further, I want to give you an idea of the structure of tonight's lecture. So apart from awesome quilts, I'm going to share with you a little bit about me. I'm done with that. We're not doing that anymore. You've made it past. I'm going to talk through the goals for this webinar. I'm going to issue an apology, and I'm going to show you a new way. And then the bulk of the webinar is really going to be focused on 3 keys to becoming confident with color and discovering your true colors. And then after that, I will share with you the Playful Color Quilt Guild program. And then I will close this out and share with you some next steps. So, what if working in color were easier and fun? If money or fabric stash or quilting time weren't an object, what would your quilting dream look like? What would it feel like to bring a sense of confidence and adventurousness? What would it feel like to bring an adventurous spirit to your creative time? And again, that is my goal for you today, for here today. So I want to share with you that it is possible to have fun and quilt in color with confidence. And I also want to share with you a clear path and a plan to get you where you want to be. So we want to play with color in our quilts. We want to make quilts in our true colors and not someone else's. We want to break up with the color, the bundles, the fabric bundles. We want to know how to use those color fabric bundles. We want to shop our stashes or shop with purpose. And most of all, most importantly, we want to feel confidence when we're working with color. So today I want to share with you that it is possible to do all those things and feel confident as you're working with color. So why is this program different? So I want to start with some facts. So why is this program different? What makes this different? So we quilters have never before in the history of all quilt kind, we've never had access to as many colors and fabrics ever before. But despite the amount of fabric that is available, there's still a disconnect between where we want to be and where we are right now. So we want to quilt in color, but we don't know how to get there. And we have all these fabrics and colors, and we should be able to just quilt in color with confidence, but that's just not the case. So because we have all these new colors and fabrics, we have all these different colors and fabrics available to us, our natural inclination is to think that we need to go and study and learn color theory. Or we might think we need to buy more fabric, or stay in our color comfort zones, or only sew with bundles. And that really leaves us feeling stuck and overwhelmed, like our dear friend here, the deer in the headlights. We really feel like Mr. Deer. We feel overwhelmed, right? And personally, my inclination as a maker and a teacher was to learn and teach color theory, but it wasn't getting me or my students the results that we wanted. So this slide right here is a slide from one of my first lectures. And just looking at that slide, don't you feel overwhelmed just by looking at that slide? Can you just see how messy and overwhelming it is? So the point here is I don't want you to take any notes on this slide. This is no good. But my point here is I wasn't doing my students any favors by thinking that I had to teach them color theory. It was just overwhelming. So I want to say that I'm sorry. So here's the apology part, because I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I contributed to the feeling of overwhelm. Overwhelm, yeah. So even when we were learning about color theory, even when I was teaching about color theory, there is still that disconnect between where we are now and where we want to be. And we want to quilt in color, right? So there was no path to get from here to there. So yeah, this is the hard way, the learning color theory way. And when we learned color theory, we tended to study color theory, to learn about color with the hopes of quilting in color. But there was no path from theory to fabric. And so there was no active practice of putting what we were learning about theory into practice with our fabric and our quilts. And all the rules and rights and wrongs and theories, that just creates overwhelm, which yielded few results. And it makes results, quilting color, hard to get. And so we quilters, we want the easy way, right? So we love our quick fixes, our jelly roll races, our quilts in a day. So why do we think we could learn color theory the hard way? So we busy ladies and even gentlemen, we want and need an easier way, something to work with our lifestyles. So before I get too carried away with this evening's lessons, I want to pause and say that every quilter is different. Every skill set is different. And so while I'm showing you the quickest, clearest, most straight path, I want to say that we are all running at different paces and we're at different starting points. So some of us we work still, and some of us are retired. Some of us are caregivers. And so what I want to say here is I want to pause and I want to be really clear here. This may be the easier way, but that doesn't mean we don't carry the responsibility for putting in the effort. Okay, so with that out of the way, in all of my experience as a maker and a quilt teacher, I find that color success comes down to 3 keys. And I'm going to walk you through these keys each individually. So key number 1 is action and not theory. And I've already touched on this, but it's really important that we take action with practice instead of learning about theory. Key number 2 is make less quilts, which sounds super crazy because we're quilters. So do I want you not to make any quilts? No, that's silly. We have to make quilts. We quilters, we have to make quilts, right? But the lesson here, the take-home message here is if you want to make massive color progress, you're not going to do it by making all the quilts. And I'll go into more detail shortly. And then key number 3 is just start and don't stop. Keep going. So key number 1, it's about theory. Oh, excuse me. Whoa, back up. Key number 1, it's not about theory, it's about taking action. So we need to make a shift from learning about color theory to working with color using tools or recipes. Something where we are taking action with color. So we need to be interactive and hands-on. And in the video series I shared earlier this week, I shared a little bit about this shift, and I compared it to baking. So just like in baking, We don't need to know all the food chemistry or what's going into our mixing bowls. We just need a recipe to follow. And as we follow recipes, what happens? We get better at baking, typically. And what we can do with color is we can do the same thing. So we can use a recipe, follow a tool or a strategy, and as we're following that step-by-step recipe, tool, or strategy, we are going to get better at working with color. And as we get better working with color, we're going to feel more confident. So why all these tools? What's up with these tools? So I love these tools because they are actionable. We know the steps to take. The tools are quick and easy. If we get stuck or overwhelmed, we always know our next steps. And I love these tools mostly because they serve as a scaffold. So just like we use recipes to cook and we get better at baking, the same thing applies for color. So as we use these playful color tools, we will learn more about color and we will become more confident with color. So in video 3 that went out on Friday, I shared with you all the Playful Color Blueprint. And this includes all the Playful Color tools. So I'm going to walk you through each tool a little bit more in depth now. And as I go through, I'm going to briefly describe each tool and strategy. So I want to pause here and say that these tools and strategies are taught in much more detail in the Playful Color Quilt Guild. But here I wanted to show you some real tools so you know that there's a lot to sink your teeth into. But I want to say that this is looking at the tools from a 10,000-foot view. This is the whole picture. So don't get too bogged down in the details because we go into more detail and depth in the Playful Color Quilt Guild. And by the way, there is a PDF handout that was sent out with the Playful Color Blueprint video number 3. So don't feel like you have to take lots of notes here. There is a PDF download for the Playful Color Blueprint. Okay, so our first tool is Team Rainbow. And Team Rainbow teaches us how to create a color palette where the hues work together as a team. Now, if you're not familiar with what hue is, I just want to pause for a second and say that hue means color. So what color is it? Is it yellow? Is it red? And I gave you an example, huckleberry. So you can see a huckleberry. All the colors, all the fabrics work together as a team to create that rainbow that's featured in the design. And there's not one fabric that competes with attention compared to the other fabrics. So our focus is on the entire rainbow and not just 1 or 2 fabrics. And in video, I think it was video 2, I shared with you the Team Rainbow color tool. And I showed you how we could use the tool to create a color palette that works together as a team. So this tool is really useful whenever you need a rainbow or a set of colors that work together as a team. It doesn't have to be a rainbow. I'll talk more about that in the Playful Color Quilt Guild, but for now, it's really helpful when you're looking at a quilt that needs a rainbow that works as a team, such as this quilt right here. So this is Lucy in the Sky. It's from Modern Rainbow. And you can see all the center squares feature a rainbow, and the rainbow works together as a team. And so your eye isn't drawn to one fabric within the rainbow. The whole rainbow works together. A second tool is Color Deep Dive. And this tool is really useful for creating like oohs and ahs. So there is a saying in quilting that says, let's see, how does it go? So value does all the work, but color gets the credit. And so this tool really helps us hone in on creating deep and wide value ranges for our fabric pulls. And so this tool is really useful for a monochromatic quilt where there is one color. So in this quilt here, this is Marmoration. And there is blue-green, and it goes from really deep blue-green to all the way out to really light gray and really light blue. So by using the color tool Deep Dive, we can build a really strong color palette that just elicits oohs and ahs from our viewer. And so this is another example of the color deep dive. In this example, there's a few different colors. So our hues here, there's some yellow and there's some reds and there's some pinks. And then the color deep dive is really, there's a lot of different values here. And that image right there is really, really compelling because there's such a mix of values. So this quilt is from my fabric line. Yay! So this is Feathered Star. And I put it here because I use this color deep dive tool to help me come up with the values for the fabric line panache. And then for this pattern, I use the tool to create that radiant effect. So it looks like the stars, they're radiating, especially in the blues. I really use the color deep dive tool in the blues. So you can really see how the blues, they just radiate. And that's because of the difference in value. And just in case, I don't think I said what value is, but value is lights and darks. And then here's another example of how using lights and darks in a quilt would really, another quilt pattern where you would want to use different values. So this is Irish Plus, and it's from Modern Rainbow again. And you can see I'm using different values within each color. So starting at the top, I've got purple, and I've got a medium value purple and a light value purple. And then I alternate medium value, medium, light. Okay, so the next color tool is color silos. And think about silos as the silos that hold grain, the grain. So this tool is really, really helpful for a quilt where you need the colors to stay within their own lane. So let me clarify that. So for example, this quilt, this is Ducks in a Row, it's from Modern Rainbow. You can see that the colors are lined up in rows. And so the colors, there's no bleeding between the rows. There's red, orange, and then there's orange, and then there's yellow. And so this is an example of how a tool like color silos would help us come up with fabrics where the hue, the color stays within the same range. So if you're picking out red oranges, this tool would help you refine your eye so you'd pick out the same red oranges instead of veering, say, towards a coral or a bright or a yellow orange. So color silos is really helpful for helping us build color palettes where the colors stay within their lanes. And this is another example. This is a fabric pull, and you can see the color silo tool at work here. So I've got purple, it's the same color purple, and then I've got the same color blue, and then the same color teal, and the same color yellow, and the same color orange or coral. So that the color silos tool will help you keep those fabrics and the colors within their lanes. And this is another example of a quilt that would really benefit from the color silos tool. This is Bubbles from Modern Rainbow. And when I went to make this quilt, I tried to mix up the fabrics so that they were a little bit more scrappy. And it really did not go well. It did not look good. The block did not work. So when I made the final quilt, I chose colors that stayed in their lane. So for example, all the blues are really bright blue, and all the greens are really bright green, and so on. So when I made the test block, I mixed up the blues a little bit. So I did a bright blue and I did a dark blue, and the block did not work. It was not pretty whatsoever. So sometimes quilt patterns, they can really benefit from a color tool like color silos. And then the next tool is Secret Colors. And secret colors are a way to bring outside inspiration to your fabric pulls. So there are a ton of different resources online and in other art forms where you can find color inspiration. So I go into a lot more detail on these different resources in the Playful Color Quilt Guild. But there are different palette pickers out there where you can take the palette and then you can use that palette to train your eye to choose different fabrics from your stash. And then you can use different tools like Color Silos or Team Rainbow or any of the other tools. You can use that in combination with these secret colors to really refine your eye. So one example I'll share with you here is I personally love to paint, and I would love to paint someday and be a real painting artist, but I don't have time because, you know, I'm a working mom and I've got kids, and paint is super messy, and I have my hobby right now, it's quilting. But I do love to explore color in acrylic paint. And one thing I like to do is to take two different paint colors, and I'll mix them in even graduating mixes. So I'll start off with orange, and then I'll start off with purple, and then I'll mix them together. And what that does for me here is it comes up with a color palette that works together really, really naturally. And I don't have to do any guessing. I'm not doing any thinking. I'm just following what the paint is telling me. And I personally love this because I feel confident and I feel creative, and I'm not doing a lot of mental heavy lifting when it comes to picking color. And I just love that because I'm a busy mom and I like to have fun in my quilt room. And sometimes thinking about color is not so fun. Okay, so achromatic is another playful color tool. Excuse me. And so what achromatic means is without color. So if chroma means color, achromatic means no color. And so the tool here, and I'll probably rename it so there's no color theory in the name, something like, oh gosh, nuclear neutrals was what I was thinking earlier. But the point of this tool is to use neutrals with oh good. I almost said use neutrals with purple. Use neutrals with purpose. So a lot of the times we just use a white or an off-white and we don't go any further. But there are so many neutrals out there that we can really use for a fun, and we can really play with color this way. So this is a slide of some of my favorite neutrals. I love neutrals. I have a lot, and these are all black and white neutrals, but look at that texture. Look at all of that texture that you can bring to your neutral space. And of course, there's black and white. I think this, I don't know why this is in here because, yeah, it's just black and white. So just look at the starkness of the black and white, and we'll move on because I'm not really sure why this slide is in here. Okay, so this is Flame. It's from Modern Rainbow. And I want to point out how I'm using those neutrals to help me build that color shape. And so those neutrals, I could have just used white diamonds as my background, but that would have made the rainbow really stand out against the background. And so I used neutrals, and the neutrals helped me, those different neutrals helped me create a texture in the background. And so the rainbow doesn't contrast as much because of all the texture in the neutral area. So I'm using neutrals two ways here. One, to help me build that shape, and two, to provide some different texture in the background and to ease the contrast between the rainbow and the background. So I guess that's three ways. Here's another example of how you can use different neutrals. So this is Wavelength. It's from Modern Rainbow, and I've got a couple of different neutrals in the background. I've got white and I've got off-white. They're all achromatic. And what I'm doing here is I'm using different neutrals to give texture to the background. And what this does is it eases the contrast between the rainbow and the background. So if you can imagine me using all white in the background, the rainbow would really stand apart, and it would almost be harsh. And so what I did here was to ease the graphic look of that rainbow by adding in a few different neutrals. One way I love to use neutrals is to add a little bit of color in the neutral. So this is a log cabin work in progress. It still isn't finished. I started it like 5 years ago. I should finish it, shouldn't I? So what I've done here with my neutrals is you can see some of my neutrals are very, very bright pink. And so by using a very, very pale neutral, there's just a touch of hue in there, a touch of color. This is another fun way where you can bring just a little bit more color to your designs. So when you go to think about using your neutrals, they don't have to be achromatic. They don't have to be white or black or white or gray or white or brown. You can add in a hint of color. And then to piggyback on this tool, we'll be talking about prints, right? And my fun little name for this tool is Prints Charming. So this tool will help us effectively use prints to add to our color. And so there's a few different types of fabrics in your stashes, right? So there's solids, and then there's prints. There's monotones and big prints and small prints and medium prints. And there's different ways you can use prints. So I personally like to keep my scales pretty mixed. So instead of using all large scales, I like to use medium scales and small scales all together. So typically I try to pair a medium print with a small print, or I try to create some contrast between the background and the foreground. And sometimes I can do that by using different scale prints. So this is my Hello Houston scrappy quilt, and I've used a lot of different scale prints here. There's lots and lots of busy prints here. And again, I tried to use small prints next to big prints and introduce some contrast there. I really do love to use small prints next to a busy print. And then this is Hello Holland, and I'm using my prints again. And you can see, it's hard to tell in this picture, but for my neutrals, I've added a lot of very light pink neutrals. And that was a way for me to bring some extra color to that quilt. So again, we'll go into a lot more detail in the Playful Color Quilt Guild, so I'll back up a little bit. And again, there's a PDF on this. So for your prints, there's a bunch of different types of prints you can use. So you can use solids, and then you can use monotone prints where there's just one color, white on tone, and then there's multicolored prints, and then there's size. So there's large scale, medium scale, and small scale. Okay, our next Playful Color tool is Color Shape. And this is one of my favorites, and I've got a lot of examples to share with you. So I love to build a shape with color and value. So we already saw an example. So this is Huckleberry. And of course, I've got a circular shape here that I've built with my color. And then this is the, right triangle sampler from Modern Triangle Quilts. And the shape I'm building here is pretty circular, but it's not quite as symmetrical as a circle. And then this is a mosaic symmetry. So when we talk about color shape, then we also talk about shape, when we talk about color shape, we will be talking about different types of symmetry and balance. So this is a type of symmetry called mosaic symmetry. And a mosaic symmetry is where there's just a bunch of shapes and it's all universal throughout. Kind of like a mosaic, right? So this is Wake. It's from Modern Triangles, and it's an example of mosaic symmetry. And then, of course, there's Flame, which we already saw. So you can see the shape here is that diagonal rainbow through the quilt. And you can see how I'm sculpting the shape with my neutrals. And here's an example of how you could play with color shape. If you like to watercolor, you could use watercolor and watch the colors bleed from one to another. And that could be the way you choose the colors. I've used that tool in the past, and it takes a lot of the thinking out. I can just watch and observe the colors mix and then use my color chips to match the colors based on what the watercolors are doing. It's really fun for me. It takes the thinking out. Sometimes I don't like to think as much because I do a lot of thinking in the daytime. You know, this is a hobby. I want to enjoy it. Thinking's enjoyable. And then this is another example. It is Scattered from Modern Rainbow, and it's another example of a diagonal shape. And I'm using the diagonal colors, and I'm using the neutrals to support that design, that shape. And this is an example of another color shape, where this one is actually one I used a watercolor to color. So I painted a square rainbow watercolor, and instead of trying to figure out where the colors should mix and match, I did the watercolor, and then I picked the colors based on what I saw in the watercolor. Again, we go into detail, a lot more detail on the Playful Color Quilt Guild, but these are just fun ways to play with color. And then this is a quilt design I'm working on for the spring. I think this will be our third quarter quilt along for the Playful Color Quilt Guild. So on the left, you see a watercolor. And then on the right, you see the quilt design based on the watercolor. And it was just a really fun way to come up with a color design, and you can see the shape of the color within that quilt, and it's just fun. I love it. And the same thing here. I did the same thing here. I took a watercolor and I chose the colors based on what the watercolor did, and the color placement was based on how the watercolors moved and mixed together. So instead of me thinking about where the color should go, I just painted and observed. And it's a lot more fun. So this is the tie-dye courthouse. I'll be teaching it as part of the Playful Color Quilt Guild. Okay, another fun color tool is something called color progression. So color progression is taking one color to another color and how you progress from one color to another color. And you can also do it, that was from hue to hue, but you can also do it from value to value. So you can do dark blue to light blue, or you could do light blue to green and then dark green. So it creates a seamless palette, and that is really beneficial for quilt patterns where you want to create a seamless color palette. So this is Rainbow Streak. It's from Modern Rainbow. And this is an example of how I use this color tool to create a seamless palette here, a seamless rainbow. So as the color moves from top to bottom, from purple to pink, each fabric plays a role in progressing the rainbow from one side of the rainbow to the next side of the rainbow. And looking a little bit more in detail here, each fabric plays a role. I started off, I think I ended up with 36 fabrics, and I started off with 48 and just pared down. And so one thing I love to do is create that seamless rainbow and create a progression from one side of the rainbow to another side. And then once you learn about color progression, then you can play with color progression interruption. So if you look at this quilt, you'll see that rainbow going through the right side right there. And you can see that that is not a team rainbow. There are some colors within that rainbow that are competing for attention. And there's some contrast, especially next to the bright blue and the dark green. And that contrast really draws your eye in, and it interrupts the progression of that rainbow. And my thought behind that was I wanted to bring the viewer's eye inside that rainbow, and I wanted to just interrupt the rainbow right there. Now, I don't know if that was an effective use of progression interruption, but it was sure fun to play with. And so here's a detailed shot, a detailed and backward shot of that rainbow interruption there. And our next tool we'll be talking through is transparency. So transparency is a really fun thing to play with. So it creates an illusion of layers in your quilt. And I'm seeing a lot of transparent quilts coming up on Instagram. Maybe it's a new hot thing, or maybe I'm just looking for transparency and I'm finding it, because I personally don't have a lot of quilts that use transparency. So to create the illusion of transparency, you can use hue and saturation. You can do it 3 different ways, and we'll get into how to do that in the Playful Color Quilt Guild. But I want to show you an example of transparency and how you can play with transparency in your quilts. So this is wavelength. We've seen it before. And there is the design features layered triangles. That's what shape that is, layered triangles. And I used darker triangles. I use darker fabric to create the illusion of layers. So when you're creating the illusion of layers, you can do it based on value. So looking at the left side of that quilt, there is a red purple and a purple purple, and I just used a darker color, and I used a mix between the hues. So it's mixed between red, purple, and purple. So it's like a another tertiary color there, and then I also used saturation. I used a more saturated color. But you don't have to do that. You can create the illusion of transparency by doing just a different color, like a different hue. I could have done just the hue there, the red, purple, that tertiary color there to mix, or I could have done the value. So when you create the illusion of transparency, you can use hue, the color, and you can use saturation, or you can use them together. And the next tool will be color improv. So using color as your improv inspiration versus using a design as your inspiration. So, and a lot of the times we do improv. We start with a design inspiration, and this is just using color as the design inspiration instead of the design as the design inspiration. So this is the Impossible Rainbow. It's improvisationally pieced, and yeah, it features a rainbow. And then this is Icarus Star. And again, it features a rainbow, but the rainbow is a little different, and it's improvisationally pieced. And what I like about this design is it's not perfect, and I like how the imperfection. So it's not. You can see how the orange, the border of the orange, is a little bit wonky. It's not quite symmetrical, and that I just love that texture of the design there. And while we're here, we can look at the neutrals in the star spokes, and you can see that I'm using neutrals. I'm using a lot of different neutrals. There's no color in the neutrals. It's just going from white, and it's progressing to the darker gray. And so using the tool Color Deep Dive, that would help you build out that color progression there, or the color progression tool. Okay, and then the last tool is Polychrome. And this for me was really, really helpful, especially when I was trying to come up with my color palettes for modern triangle quilts. And I shared with you earlier how I just really felt my confidence just really, really suffered as I came up with those color palettes. And so this tool, Polychrome, and Polychrome means many colors, this Polychrome tool helped me create color palettes with few colors, and it really helped build my confidence in that department, because this is where I would say to myself, I can only do rainbow colors. I can't do anything but rainbow colors. But Polychrome helped me feel confident about the color palettes I was putting together that weren't rainbow palettes. Okay, so these are just a few examples. These color palettes are from the Modern Triangle Quilts book. These were the 3 color palettes I chose. So the top left is the color palette from the isosceles section. The bottom left is the color palette from the right triangle section. I am blanking on my shapes. And then the right side is the color palette for the equilateral section. And so what this did for me was it allowed me to create 3 different color palettes and then work with those different color palettes as I made a handful of quilts for each section. So for each section, I made 3 to 4 quilts. I didn't have to keep coming up with color palettes. I just used what I had and I went. So I just want to show you a few quilts that came from these palettes. So this is the equilateral sampler, and it is a really bold design. It's a really graphic design. And to get the design looking really graphic, I kept the palette super limited. So I just used red and pink and yellow, and then I used black and gray and white. If I wanted to bring some more texture to that color palette, I would add in a few different tones of pink and red or yellow. So for example, coming back to this slide, on the right side, you can see how there's more tones in the pinks. I'm going down. I'm going to deep purple and then to light pink. And then I've got a couple different values for the yellow. I've got a darker yellow and I've got a really bright yellow. So by adding in some different tones and different saturations, I'm giving the palette more texture, and that will make your quilt look less graphic. So if you want your quilt to look really graphic, limit the saturation. And then this again is Wake, and I've got a lot of different, this one is more textures. So So there's lots of different saturations with the blues. And then I've got one yellow for a pop, but I've got all those different saturations for the blues, and that gives the quilt a little less graphic look. And then this is an isosceles quilt pattern, and it's basically just two colors, blue and peach, and I've got all those I've got a couple different saturations to ease the contrast there, but it's still a really, really bold quilt pattern. Okay, so that is the Playful Color Blueprint. It's an outline of all the tools that we'll be learning in the Playful Color Quilt Guild. So again, I just want to say that these are all taught in much more detail within the Playful Color Quilt Guild. So we're only going surface level deep here. But I really wanted to show you these tools so that you know there's quite a bit there. There's a lot of different ways you can play with color. Okay, so key number 2. The less quilts you make, the more progress you'll make. And this is crazy talk coming from a quilter, right? So, and this is why the program is different from any other program. So when I say the less quilts you make, the more progress you'll make, you're thinking, so you don't want us to make quilts? No. We're quilters. We're gonna make quilts, right? My point here is if you want to make massive color success, or if you want to make massive color progress quickly, you can't do that by making all the quilts, because quilts, they take so gosh darn long, right? And so when we look at our options as quilters, we have a few different options, right? We can make quilts, which is the hard way, right? So by making quilts and expecting to be good with colors, like, no. Because most of us can't make a quilt in a day, every day, day in and day out. So it's hard to iterate making quilts. So if you can make a quilt every day, day after day, you will make color progress. But for the rest of us, we can't make quilts. We can't make a quilt every day. And so what we can do is make a color palette. So the color palette is just by making if you have color palettes based on paint chips or fabric chips, it's a really low time investment compared to making a quilt. And you can iterate it every day if you wanted to. You could make a color palette every day, or you could make a handful one day and a handful the next week, and you would start to gain some color confidence, and you would start to see different color palettes that you love. Another thing we can do as quilters is create fabric pulls, and these fabric pulls will be based on the color palette, right? And so creating a fabric pull it's a bigger time investment compared to the color palettes, but it's nowhere near the time investment that it would take to make a quilt, right? So making a fabric pull is easy to iterate because you can do that pretty often, and it does take a little bit of time investment, but you will be gaining a lot of color experience in the color palette and the fabric pull section here. So because the color palettes and the fabric pulls are easiest to iterate, if you want to make massive color progress, you'll want to spend your time and energy working on creating palettes and color and fabric pulls. And then once you have a fabric pull you love, then you can invest that time and make a quilt that you love as well. So yes, we want to make some quilts, right? Okay, so how do I know this? So for 12 or 18 months, I can't remember how long this happened, how long I did this, I wrote a column in Love Patchwork and Quilting. And each month I created a color palette. I created 5 to 7 color palettes each month. And I made so much color progress just by creating these color palettes every month. I felt more confident and I felt better equipped to play with color. And for the majority of those color palettes, I didn't make a quilt. And so just by making a color palette like this, month after month, I made massive color progress. And so that's my point for key number 2. The less quilts you make, the more progress you'll make. And does that mean I don't want you to make quilts? No. But if you want to make massive color progress, you want to invest your time in creating color palettes and fabric pulls. Excuse me. So key number 3, just start. You don't have to get it perfect, but you do need to start being actively working with color. And remember, when you're looking at Instagram, when you're looking at my feed, when you're looking at others' feeds, you're seeing a curated shot. You're not seeing all the mess that's going on backstage. So you didn't see me crying on Instagram when I couldn't make any color palettes for my modern triangle books. My modern triangle book. Whew, I was crying, I tell you. So just get started on your path. So you have an idea of the playful color tools and you know how to make the most progress, but what is the path to get you from where you are now to where you want to be? And so that's what we want, right? We want to quilt in color and we need a path to get there. And so my goal here is to show you the quickest and clearest path to find your true colors. So I created a path for you. So this path will take you from where you are to from where you are now to where you want to be, which is finding your true colors, right? You want to quilt in color, not someone else's. You want to break up your bundles and shop your stash or shop with purpose. And you want to do all of that with confidence, right? So the True Colors Success Path will get you there. So the True Color Success Path is that missing link, and it's the path that's going to get us to where we want to be. So in video 3, I touched on each stage, so I just want to do a quick refresh here. So stage 1 is the theory to tools stage, right? And so this stage is all about making that shift from feeling that you have to learn color theory to equipping yourself with color tools, strategies, and recipes. And most of us here that are watching this video are really beyond this stage. We've made that mindset shift. So in video 1, to help us make the shift, I talked about the playful color framework, and I likened it to baking, right? So our recipe is the playful color tool, and our ingredients is our fabrics, and we're going to be creating an awesome color palette by following the playful color framework, right? So stage 2 is our tool to palette. By using a playful color tool to create a color palette, we're going to do that by using paint chips or solid fabric swatches. And in video 2, I walked you through Team Rainbow, that playful color tool, and I shared with you how you could create a Team Rainbow color palette. And so then stage 3 is going to be our palette to fabric pull. So building a fabric pull in your true colors based on the color palette you created following a playful color tool. So your fabric pull might look something like this, but these are my true colors, so it might look a little different. Or it might look like this. So this is, you've seen this before. So what I want to say here is, remember, to make massive color progress, you want to iterate stages 2 and 3 over and over again. And so then once you have a color palette you love, then you can move on to stage 4, which is moving our fabric pull to quilt. So you've got that rad fabric pull, and now it's time to make a colorful quilt. And as you make your quilt, you'll likely use more than one of your playful color tools to perfect your color layout. So this is an example of an actual quilt I made using one of the the color palettes I put together for my Column in Love patchwork and quilting. And coming up with the colors for this was pretty easy. I used one of my palettes and I created the quilt. So what I want to say here is, even when you have your color palette and you have your fabric pull, and then you go to make your quilt, you guys have experienced this before, you're still going to feel those feelings, right? You're going to feel, am I doing this right? Does this look good? Should this color go here? Should this be a little darker? So you're going to have those feelings of, you're fearful if you're going to mess it up, or you're overwhelmed, or are these the right colors, or is this the right pattern? So what I like to think of this as the quilt police. So even though you have your fabric pull and your quilt, as you move from fabric pull to quilt, you're still going to feel these feelings. And what I want to say here is the playful color tools will help you navigate those feelings and move past the quilt police so you can keep moving forward. Oh, it plays. Look at that, it plays. And then that is bringing us to stage 5. So congrats, you've made a colorful quilt with confidence. Now you'll focus on equipping yourself with more tools to help you continue growing in your color confidence and keep making colorful and creative quilts. And so once you're moving through stage 5, as you move your fabric pole to that real life quilt, you're going to have those feelings. And as you move through stage 5, you're going to master dealing with those quilt police. So you'll be able to look at those quilt police and you'll say, not today, because you'll have the knowledge and know how to work past those quilt police officers. Okay, so right now you might be thinking, can I do this? So in the past hour or so, we've covered the 3 main keys to success. So granted, it has been at a 10,000 foot view since we only have that hour. So we talked through key 1. It's about tools, not theory. So we want to make this actionable. We want to take action with color, and we don't want to just sit and learn about color theory. We need to move it to our hands and make it actionable. Key 2, fewer quilts equals more progress. So let's iterate, baby. I cannot spell iterate, by the way. I had to look that up like a bunch of different times. So again, the way you get to massive color success is to iterate those color palettes and fabric poles. And it's hard to do it with quilts. So if we make fewer quilts and focus on iterating with those color palettes and fabric poles, we are going to make massive color success. And then key number 3 is just get going and keep going. So I showed you the path from where you are now to where you want to be. And that is the, what is it called? What did I call it? That is the, I'm blanking. Oh, yes, okay. So that path is the Find Your True Colors success path. And that's going to be your path to show you from where you are now to where you want to be. And the message here is just get going and keep going. Okay, so old habits or old habits of learning color theory are keeping us from making progress. Will you commit to this new way of working with color? So you are here for a reason. There's a reason you decided to attend this webinar. So with all these fabrics and color, there is so much potential for us to really add our true colors to the quilts we're already making. So we want to quilt in our true colors, not someone else's, right? We want to feel confident to break up those fabric bundles we love. We want to shop our stashes or shop with purpose. And we want to do that. Most importantly, we want to feel confident in what we're doing. So I want to ask, what would life look like next year if you started today? Will you join other excited quilters? So the way I see it, you have 3 different choices. So right now you have 3 choices. Choice 1, you could do nothing and continue on status quo. Choice 2, you could go at it alone. I've provided you with the path and I've provided you with the Playful Color blueprint. Or the choice 3 is let me support you along your journey. So you're already making quilts. You're going to keep making quilts because we're quilters and we're going to keep making quilts. So what would it look like to you to make those quilts in your true colors? So do you have time to figure it out all on your own? And what kind of impact would that lost time and frustration and stress have on your life? So I understand how challenging doing this all on your own is. I felt that deer in the headlights look myself before. So this is what I want for you. This is a place with step-by-step tools that might be a little bit counterintuitive to the normal flow of things, but this gets massively better results. And these are strategies that, though they are counterintuitive, making less quilts, for example, these work time and time again. So again, it's not your fault. It's partly mine. I apologize again. So if you don't know these strategies, it's not your fault. It's partly my fault. The overwhelming majority of people don't. And so the only reason I discovered them was through my experience as a columnist for Love Patchwork and Quilting, and as a teacher teaching color theory. Sorry. And so that's why I developed the Playful Color Quilt Guild. And so the Playful Color Quilt Guild is a program, and it's focused on mastering color, and it's focused on helping you find your true colors and helping you enjoy color confidence. And so the program is set up as monthly color lessons. And these color lessons are going to help you go through stages 1 through 3, and that's where we're going to be doing the iterations of our color palettes and our fabric pulls. And then the Playful Color Quilt Guild also has quarterly quilt workshops and quilt-alongs, and that's going to help you go through stages 4 through 5. So remember, stage 4 is moving that color pull to an actual quilt. And then stage 5 is, congrats, you've made a quilt. Now you're going to continue to equip yourself with more color tools. And so that's going to really help you move the color fabric pull from your cutting table to the quilt. So let me go into more details here. So the Playful Color Quilt Guild, the monthly color lesson. So there'll be the Playful Color Tool, and then there'll be color strength training. So that's where our color palette strength training is going to be. There's going to be Playful Color Tool extensions, and there'll be live Q&As and color coaching sessions. And these are going to be, these will be, each week you'll get a new lesson. So week 1 will be that Playful Color Tool. Week 2 will be that color strength training challenge, and then week 3 we'll go deeper on that tool with tool extensions, and then week 4 we'll wrap it all together with the Q&A and the color coaching sessions. And so to give you that idea of what tools we're looking at, so month 1 is going to be that Team Rainbow, month 2 is going to be Color Dive, month 3 are Color Silos, and month 4 are Secret Colors, month 5 are Prince Charming, use those prints with panache. Month 6 are Nuclear Neutrals, so power up your neutral color play. And month 7, we're going to do Color Remix. We're going to help you make your color sizzle with contrast. Then month 8, we're going to talk through Color Shape, one of my favorite lessons, modules. Month 9, we're going to do Color Progression, creating a seamless color progression from one color to the next to help make your color move across your palette. Month 10, we're going to be covering transparency, and I'm going to be teaching you how to create those layers using a few different types of transparency. Month 11 is going to be improv color. I'm really excited about that lesson as well. And then month 12, we are going to be wrapping up the year with polychrome. And that's going to be our multicolored palettes. So we're going to do those quarterly quilt-alongs, and this I'm going to be doing online quilt workshops, and these online quilt workshops are going to be included in our Playful Color Quilt Guild. So we're going to be doing an online workshop. There will be live quilt-along support. There'll be community interaction in our Facebook groups, and we'll be doing live Q&A sessions there as well. So our quarterly quilt-alongs, what are we going to be doing? So Murmuration is going to be our first quilt, our first online quilt workshop, and then we'll do Tie-Dye Courthouse will be our second one. Our third one will be Color Shape, and that's the pattern. I gave you a little teaser, didn't I? Yeah. And then the fourth quarter is going to be a To Be Determined. So we'll get some feedback from the Playful Color Quilt Guild members, and we'll choose one together. So here's Murmuration. This is one of the included workshops. And then this is the Tie-Dye Courthouse. This is an included workshop as well. So this is the second quarter. Murmuration is the first quarter. So yeah, that's the Playful Color Quilt Guild program. So it's going to include those monthly color lessons, and it's going to include the quarterly online quilt workshops. So who is the Playful Color Quilt Guild for? So this is for beginners or experienced quilt makers. So whether you're just beginning in your quilt making journey, or if you are an experienced quilter and you're looking to bring more color play to your quilts. And if you're looking to take some action, this is for you. So I mentioned earlier that though this is the easiest and clearest path to finding your true colors, working with color confidence, we can't sit back and just let it happen. So this is for quilters that are looking to really take some action and make some investment in their color practice. And then quilters looking for community. So I love my online communities. I love supporting them and I love watching them grow. So let's do this together. This is for quilters looking for community. So who is this not for? So this program is not for the tire kicker. So if you're just kind of interested, this program might not be for you. So for those of you that are kind of interested but aren't sure, so this isn't for the kind of quilter. So the reason is you just kind of can't expect success. Success doesn't kind of happen. So this program isn't for the tire kicker, so to speak. And then this isn't for the color magician, someone who's looking for a really quick fix. So I mentioned this is the quickest and easiest path that I know of, but you will need to make a commitment to practice and to take action. And it's not for the know-it-all, right? So, excuse me, I need a drink. So some of what I'm saying goes against the grain, especially the idea of not learning color theory. That's not going to be for everyone. And so I will ask that you be open to what I'm sharing. And if you're not open to what I'm sharing, it's going to be a frustrating experience for both of us. So, but if you are someone that has a genuine desire to work with color in a new way, then I look forward to working with you. Okay, so the monthly color lessons, I price them out at a $348 for the year. Now monthly, that breaks down to like $19 a month or $29 a month or something. And then the four quilt workshops, that's going to be a $388 value. My quilt workshops online are usually around $97 each. So, and then the Playful Color Discussion Group, I put a $97 value on that. And that, it's just really hard to put a value on a discussion group. But this is going to be a community of quilters who are focused on improving their color play. And it's going to be a really safe space to share your struggles with color or to share your wins with color. And it's going to be just a great space to share with other quilters. So the live question and answer coaching calls for the year, it's going to be $197. I will be actively working with you inside the Playful Color Guild. So I'll be on there probably once a week and really working in detail and more closely with my guild members. So sum it all up, the Playful Color Quilt Guild, what you'll get that monthly color training. You'll get the live Q&A color coaching sessions, you'll get the discussion group, and you'll get the 4 quilt workshops. And that total value comes out to like over $1,000 for the whole year. So I'm also thinking of adding in a finisher's power pack. And so what I'm thinking is I just really am focused on your success. So I'm thinking of adding in some a bonus workshop for to help you finish. So I had an idea of teaching machine binding, for example, but this could also be expanded to include quilting ideas and different ways to like baste a quilt. So this bonus is focused on helping you finish the quilt that you started. I love machine binding, so. Okay, so the Playful Color Quilt Guild will open up tomorrow, and it's going to be all of that for just $14 a month or $140 for the year. And so the cart will open tomorrow at playfulcolor.com. So you can get started at playfulcolor.com, and you'll get an email tomorrow, and I'll let you know when it's ready. So we'll start the Playful Color Quilt Guild. It's going to start next week. We're going to open it up at $14 a month or the $140 for a year. If